What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and I just finished up watching Devin Haney versus Joseph Diaz Jr., and this was a 12-rounder for the WBC Lightweight World Championship, and this fight was Saturday, December 4th, from the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this fight was broadcasted on DAZN, and in this fight, Devin Haney was able to get a unanimous decision victory over Joseph Diaz Jr. I personally scored the bout 115 to 113 in favor of Devin Haney, and the three judges scored the bout 117 to 111 twice for Haney, and 116 to 112. So Devin Haney performed pretty well, honestly. But there was a lot of swing rounds throughout the fight, so I wouldn't have even been surprised if a judge had it a draw. But that is being a little bit generous towards Diaz Jr. But still, Diaz Jr. was able to hurt Haney a couple times, specifically to the body, and that's really where Devin Haney lost some of those rounds. It's because Diaz was able to land some nice shots, flush on Haney, and Haney looked hurt throughout the fight. Round 12 especially, Haney was hurt to the body, and that's really where Diaz had a lot of his success, going to the body of Haney and landing some of those shots. But just to break down the fight round by round, the first couple rounds were somewhat competitive, I guess you could say, because after three, I had a 29-28 in favor of Haney. But the second round was definitely a round that you could have gave to Haney, and it could have been 3-0, but I gave it to Diaz because he landed some nice body shots and whatnot. But then rounds 4 and 5 could have went either way. Haney, I thought, won the fourth, or should I say, I thought Haney won round 5, but I thought Diaz won the fourth. Diaz was able to actually get to Haney a bit, landed a nice left to the head, backed him up, landed some nice big body shots that sort of made Haney slunch over. And really, the rounds that Diaz won clear were rounds that obviously he dug to the body and was able to hurt Haney. It wasn't really a round where he dominated through and through. It was rounds that he landed flush, clean, and effective punches that he was able to, in some bits of that round, really hurt Haney. But then there was some moments throughout the fight, specifically the middle rounds to later rounds, where Haney would win 2 rounds, then on my scorecard, Diaz would take back 1, or he'd win 2 more and take back 1. It was really that type of fight, and Diaz, he did better than I thought he would, honestly, although the scorecards did come in pretty much how I predicted they would, aside from like a 118-110 score. But Diaz did come forward more than I thought he would, and he was actually able to hurt Haney as opposed to what I thought that he really wouldn't, because he hurt Haney numerous times, but Haney was also able to get to Diaz, but surprisingly it didn't really hurt Diaz. Diaz rarely got buckled at all. He did get hit by one good left hook, I believe in round 11, that sort of backed him up a bit, but that was it. Diaz really didn't get hurt, but Haney, if Diaz was bigger and was a natural 135 or with more power, he actually could have really done some damage to Haney. But, he doesn't have as much power as most of the guys at 135. So, obviously Haney wasn't going down or anything, or wasn't at threat of really getting stopped. But he got buzzed a couple times. But still, it was a decent performance by Haney. He looked sharp. He was accurate most of the time. And, this is definitely one of the best wins of his career thus far. Defeating an interim champion basically is mandatory, I guess you could say. So, what is next for Devin Haney? I would love to see him fight, obviously, George Kambosos Jr., who's a newly crowned unified champion at the weight class for what would be an undisputed lightweight title fight, depending on whether you count Kambosos Jr. as undisputed. I don't, because I just think the WBC franchise belt doesn't really count towards that. But Devin Haney, just the one last piece, in my opinion, the one last key to undisputed. So, I would love to see them fight. Or I would like to see Lomachenko, the Lomachenko versus Comey winner fight, Devin Haney, someone like that. I think Haney's due for a huge fight. Or hopefully even Ryan Garcia, someone like that. I just want to see Haney fight a top 5 guy in the weight class. And I know Boxwork had Diaz ranked in the top 5, but I don't think many people, and myself included, didn't have Diaz Jr. in their top 5 going into this fight. But he was definitely top 10. So for Diaz, I don't know if he's going to go back into 130. Most likely not, considering that he was having a lot of hard time making weight. And scratch that. He was definitely having a hard time making weight, so he'll probably stay at 135. He's definitely a good fighter at that weight class. He proved it here. He could compete with the guys in the top 5, and it was somewhat competitive, and he could hurt them quite a bit. But, I think he probably will end up fighting someone like a Nakatani next. Someone in the top 15. top 12 in the weight class, maybe even. I mean, there's just a lot of names in the lightweight division that he could fight, and that would bring good fights. Like, if Comey wasn't fighting Lomachenko, I'd say he could fight Comey or someone like that. I'd be interested to see that. Or if Teofimo Lopez wasn't suspectedly going to fight, like, the winner of Taylor Catterall, then he could have fought, like, Teofimo. Like, that would have been an interesting fight. But, yeah, I mean, I really just want to see Diaz get tested to see really where he's at 135, like, by someone else, like a Javier Fortuna level. Someone in the top 15, top 10 in the weight class, maybe even top 8. So overall, Devin Haney defeats Joseph Diaz Jr. by unanimous decision. Yeah, in a fairly competitive fight. And yeah, Haney getting the 4th successful defense of his world title. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.